Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stephanie Stevens Show. Tonight on our show, we have an incredible, how would we say, a brave individual, a good friend of mine, somebody that I met months ago, and he has been through some challenges, and he wanted to come on this show and share his story because he thought it would help others out there. So, in doing the show, as you guys know, in the last few months, many people have been suffering through mental illness or certain disorders, bipolar, or a lot of neurological disorders. And so my good friend, Mr. Roman Erlin, decided he wanted to come on the show and share his story because he thought it would help other young people. And I agree. So today, I just want to say, welcome to the show, Roman.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Now, when I first started about doing the show, I wanted to have you on the show because you were my friend, and I really didn't want to get really personal with you about your personal life. But I always think sometimes it's best to talk about these things, and it helps create some sort of a relief or gives you some outlet. And to sort of vent, say what you're feeling, say how you're really feeling, like millions of other people out there. So where are you actually from?
I'm from Ukraine originally. That's where I was born.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved to Israel when I was 1 year old. Mm-hmm. And then I lived there for 8 years. I grew up, did 3 grades there. Then we moved here to Canada in 1998 and when I was 9. And I've been here ever since, so 22 years now.
Mm-hmm. Now, since you've been, how do you find Canada as far as leaving from?
I grew up here too, right?
Oh, okay.
But Canada, the only real big difference is there's more people, so everything is less personal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you walk past a person on the street, you don't necessarily know them, so you don't say hi. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Israel, you kind of knew everybody in your town. People were more friendly. I was also a kid, so I had rose glasses on as a kid. You feel amazing.
Yeah.
I know I did before mental illness hit, but as a kid, I was everyone seemed more friendly, or it seemed like a more personal sort of community.
Mm-hmm. Now, Canada is a great place for many reasons, but we don't need to go into that. I mean, of course, we also have our issues as well. And it's great that Canada welcomes so many different people from so many different cultures and backgrounds and different even countries and cultures. And I'm just blessed the fact that I'm an American and living and working in Canada. And Canada's been very welcoming to me. But I've learned that there's a lot of traditions here that we don't have in the States, but diversity here has made it possible for me to learn other cultures and to integrate with other minorities or people that are just that I wouldn't integrate with or talk with in my own country. Mm-hmm. Now, do you mind me asking you how old you are?
31.
Okay. Any education?
Education?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a few little trial runs with careers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We won't get into it then.
Okay.
We understand that. Down the road, what is it that you want to be? Like, is there something that you're aspiring to be now? We'll get into what's going on with you in a minute. But I just want the audience to have a sense of who you are.
Yeah. Well, because of everything that I've been through and understood in my own mind and went through emotionally and psychically, I kind of have a good understanding, I think, of my own mind and mental illness. And when you understand yourself, you kind of can't help but apply that to understanding other people. Mm-hmm. So when I met you, I was working for 1 year as an intern at Sound Times, and I really enjoyed that. That was one of the only jobs that I held that I actually truly enjoyed. It was very tough. But that's my thing. Is I want to be of some service in some way to people. That's the main thing.
Well, that's the good thing about Sign Times was it was an outlet for a lot of us there, and it gave us something to do, and it showed that people do care about what's going on with you if you reach out. Now, what I want to know is how do you feel about where you are now in your life? How do you feel about that? I mean, we'll get into your diagnosis in a minute, but how do you feel about where you are now? Do you feel like you've lost 20 years of your life, or dealing with what you've been dealing with, or do you feel like you're right on course?
I feel mixed about my life. In some ways, it's best it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because since the diagnosis, I feel at my best compared to where I was at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there are some things missing. It feels like a meaningful career is still missing.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I feel pretty good. Like this pandemic, I think I was more prepared for it than most people. But it still hit me to some degree. I still went through the usual feelings that a person will go through during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I feel pretty good. I don't feel like I lost. I've gained a lot through struggling, and I feel like that kind of perspective where you go through a struggle and you actually feel like you're gaining something. You feel, or in another sense, losing something that's not you and gaining something that's more true to who you are. That's why I feel that all the struggle people go through during their mental illness, beginning and closer to later stages, are very valuable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know being locked up in this last year for all of us has been very trying and tough and very strange. So. And for me to be staying in the house 24/7 as an entertainer was very difficult.
Yeah.
And you as a musician, and the fact that there were so many programs that was offered to us, and I was working all the time on the road or trying to put my life back together with the entertainment business and just get back on track with working and putting my life back where I wanted it to be. Now, you have, like you said, is you were being in the house and all this stuff. For sometimes people that are suffering with disorders, this is probably the best place for them to be. Now, I know you being a young person, that is not the case, because I see that you drive, and I see that you're very outgoing. So you're willing to get better. You're willing to work. You're willing to do a lot of the things to put your life back together, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten into a sort of kind of a routine, not a routine, but a sort of energy where I want to work on myself. I want to get up and meditate. I want to advance. I want to heal my traumas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the reason why I have the motivation to go out. I mean, in some ways, if I stay home for 3 days, it affects me.
Now, how does your family feel? Like, what about your mother and your father and your brothers and sisters?
About my mental illness?
No, just in general. Are you in contact with like your mother and your father? What's your relationship like with your folks?
Now it's very good.
Okay.
I don't live with them anymore. I live on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gotten a lot better. With my dad, I had some struggles, which we can get into.
Okay.
Part of the reason why I became homeless at some point in my past, when I was 21.
Mm-hmm.
But with my relationship with my parents now is very good.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the first time you knew something was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When did you know just not what the disorder is, but when did you know something was wrong or you weren't feeling right? When did you know?
Well, it hit me hard at 19. Now it all makes sense in retrospect, but back then I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was into working out a lot. I was pretty good shape, and I was in school for kinesiology, but I didn't feel any passion for it. I wasn't in the mind space yet of questioning what I wanted to do. It was all subconscious. But a part of me was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I think everything that happened kind of stemmed from that. But what happened was, when it first hit me was panic attacks. I had a concussion, and I started reading too much about it when I got home. Just a part of me went, but what if this might happen? So I started reading about stuff like second impact syndrome, where you can get 2 concussions in 2 weeks and you might die. And that's when my panic attacks about concussion started, and it got worse over the next 6 months. And I was at that point,
So
19 years old.
Okay, so you were overthinking it, in a sense.
Yeah.
You were a hypochondriac, in a sense.
I wasn't,
And you were a young person.
I wasn't
You really
trusting.
didn't know. So how did you get the concussion in the first place?
Well, I was pretty mild concussion. It wasn't a concussion that did it. It was it triggered like a certain fear. I think it was now a fear of death.
Okay.
Very, very deep fear of death, which I don't have anymore. When I had my breakdown 6 months later, it just vanished.
Okay.
But during that time, what was the question? Sorry.
What happened with the concussion? I thought.
Oh yeah.
How did you get it?
Oh yeah. I was just me and my friend were play fighting, and he pushed me. I tripped on a bed, hit my head on the wall.
Oh.
It wasn't a major concussion. It was.
Okay. Now, when did you go see a doctor? Did your folks ever think something was wrong with you?
Yeah. So after about a few months of panic attacks, they take a toll on you mentally. What happened was, my parents started seeing I'm not doing so well. They could see it in my demeanor. They could see it in the fact that I couldn't concentrate on anything, the fact that I was not doing the same things that I used to do. So they brought me to mental health in York Region, and that's where I met my therapist. But back then, that's all we did, at that point. We just started therapy.
So your mother and father, because sometimes your mother is very connected to their children. The mother is more connected usually than the father. So she generally would say, first of all, the father would say, well, he'll get over it. It'll pass. It'll go away. But the mother always understands the deep meaning or the deep feelings that you're having. And she sensed that. Did she say to you, like, did she ever mention to your father, well, maybe the boy's crazy, or maybe he needs to see somebody? How did that conversation come about? Did they ask you what was going on with you?
Oh, they could just tell, and I also was honest with them. I told them, I'm having a lot of anxiety. Yeah. They didn't think I was crazy. What spooked both me and my mom at that time was I went to my GP to ask for some help. I didn't know what to do, and he said, you might develop schizophrenia. And back then it was like, whoa, like huge hit. My mom was really hit by that because it's a scary diagnosis. It means lost touch with reality, blah blah blah, all the assumptions about it. But back then, yeah, when he said that scared both me and my mom. But yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to dig too much into it. I just want to sort of lay it out for the audience that I want to figure out why he's going through what he's going through. What first started it? There had to be a starting point. Now, when your parents took you to the psychiatrist or to the doctor, what did the doctor first say? Because you were a young person, I would just think they'd be like, well, he's just stressed out or he's got too much energy.
No, once I saw a psychiatrist, it was already bad. It was after homelessness and psychosis. That was after the panic attacks, and it was after a very severe nervous breakdown when I was 19 in July. And after that, psychosis started 2 years after this severe nervous breakdown. Just to put in perspective, like this nervous breakdown was so severe that it was worse than the psychosis that was to come. 2 years later, it completely debilitated me. I couldn't get out of bed. I would faint because my nervous system was in such bad shape. If I lifted my head off the pillow, it would just be like, and agitation was through the roof. If I had to handle 10 seconds of that, it would be harder than my life now in months' time. So
Well, now, once they figured out what was happening with you, what was there a difference in the way your parents treated you once the doctor told them that you were going through something? Did they treat you any different?
My parents were always loving. They always accepted me.
Okay.
I never had problems with them treating me differently.
Well, that's a good thing.
They told my parents he'll never be the same when I was in the hospital after the homelessness and finally getting on medication and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they said that, but my mom was obviously very worried for me, but over the past, how many years has it been? Over the past 10 years that I've been out of hospital and
Mhm.
recovering slowly and getting better and even surpassing pre-illness.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I want to just ask you this. What did the doctors diagnose you as having? What was the actual diagnosis?
It was schizophrenia.
Okay. And is there a cure for schizophrenia? Is there a cure, or do you have to stay on medication for your whole life? Or, like, how does it work?
The general accepted treatment is medication for a while, at least 5 years, but
Mhm.
usually your whole life, yeah. They also recommend being active, working, whatever, being just like any person would keep up their own mental health
Mhm.
or feel good is what's recommended for a person with schizophrenia.
Okay, now you talked a lot about this homeless thing that seemed to have had a real effect on your mental wellness, or just it sort of made your situation worse. So how did you become homeless?
I was struggling at the time. This was after the nervous breakdown in 2011.
Mhm.
Weed isn't recommended for people with schizophrenia, but that's kind
Weed
of
is not recommended for people with
it's a
schizophrenia. You heard
slippery
it from
slope.
him.
It's a slippery slope. I think it can have some benefit if taken properly, or maybe taken with little THC, or even taken full blown weed. I think you can make use of it. But for me at the time, it wasn't that good. I was going through a lot of it heightened my struggle.
Okay.
So at that point, I got really upset at my dad for something that was past trauma with him, because he was controlling me when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And I got so angry that I said, screw it, I'm leaving home, I'm gonna become homeless and live in shelters. And so it was because of,
So you chose to leave home.
yeah.
So how did you, were you taking medications at the time?
No.
Okay, so what happened when you became homeless? Like how did, you must have been going through something traumatizing.
It was even before I became homeless, I started already having some psychotic symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Once I became homeless, they obviously got worse.
Mm.
Because no diet, no good diet, no good support, the usual things with homelessness.
Mhm.
You've been homeless too,
Mm-hmm.
so you kind of remember some of those things.
I understand.
It's a really shitty kind of environment for a person struggling with mental illness to be
Mhm.
homeless, because that just makes everything worse. You don't have a safe place to process emotions. You don't have
Mhm.
a structured routine. You're vulnerable. So while I was homeless, though, it was a trip. It was like a psychotic, very interesting trip. There were some really interesting parts and fun parts. A lot of very difficult psychotic experiences. Just to go into brief detail, it was started with telepathy with people. I would communicate with people in my head, which I met in person, but communicated with them after I met them. And some of those interactions were really, really vivid, more vivid than this. It's like you feel them and they're answering you, and it's just amazing.
So when you were in the shelter, because when you were at home, you say you had a few episodes. Did you ever have any real episodes at the shelter? Or you were too busy trying to figure out this anomaly of concerning everything? Like from being in a safe space to not knowing if the person next to you is going to kill you, rob you, or whatever.
I was too lost in my own trip to really worry about things, but obviously still affected me. And the whole homelessness, 6 months of it, I was in an episode, you could say. A pretty bad one, yeah. So
how do you feel about, you've been taking medication now for how long?
9 years.
Okay, and how does this medication make you feel? Is it helping?
My personal view about medication is over medication is bad. No medication can also be bad. The right dose can help you to bring you down a little bit, where you could still have some symptoms and your regular feelings, your regular emotions, and you could actually work just like anyone else works with their mind, to slowly recover and get better. But for a while I was over-medicated, really over-medicated, and that's actually really bad. It feels really bad to be over-medicated.
Well, for me, I find that, the challenges, I mean, there's so many challenges being a young person, mainly when you become homeless and you've chosen that. I'm sure your mother reached out once or twice and said, come home, or what's happening with you, and all of this stuff. Yeah. And, but when you think about the mere fact that you're a young person and you should be doing things that young people should be doing instead of going to doctors and being homeless and stuff, you should maybe have a girlfriend or playing sports or hanging out with your friends. This is stuff that you probably missed in the 6 months that you were homeless. Did the homelessness wake you up into reality?
I don't feel like I missed anything, because when you're 20, which is when I was homeless, you have a lot of pressure on kids, 20-year-old kids, to find a job, keep a job, go to school, and that's nice. I don't feel like I was missing. I had a very good teenage life, a very good few years, and didn't feel like I was missing anything, to be honest. One thing I will share was when I had that breakdown, the nervous breakdown. Before it, I was, like a teenager. You can see it on my face. Afterwards, I took a picture of myself while I was really struggling, and part of me is like, whoa, I feel like an adult now.
Oh.
So it's I'm still not, fully an adult, but it changed me. It really helped me grow a lot, I think, which is not a very popular opinion about mental illness, is it helps you grow. People think it's just a nuisance and something needs to be fixed and medicated and repressed and basically ignored or treated, yeah. But people don't talk about the fact that it is, in my opinion, spiritual growth, emotional maturity, personal development, that kind of thing.
Okay. Now, did you ever have a girlfriend?
Yeah, I've had maybe a couple after all the psychosis, after getting on medication.
Okay.
Before that, I also had maybe 3 or 4 when I was a teen.
Okay. Now, because the reason I ask you that is because, sometimes women, or even when you're young, girls are looking for, boys that are just either playing football, are strong, have a job, a truck or something like that. They can drive around to the movies and they have money so they can do stuff, eat ice cream, go have ice cream and chat and all these kind of things. Now, did your girlfriends did any of them ever leave you because of this?
No, because I didn't have one while I was starting to get the mental illness.
So how did you deal with having a girlfriend when you were actually going through what you were going through? I mean, because when you were homeless, you couldn't have had a girlfriend.
No. Well.
Oh.
No.
Oh,
I didn't.
Sorry.
Well, part of my growth was to let go of a lot of the need and desperation to have a partner. Obviously a part of me still wants one, and it will happen for me, but I try to focus on myself and my own personal development.
That's good advice. Focus on yourself.
Because, we all think someone else can complete us. We don't feel whole already. We feel like we're half.
I'm glad that you said that. It made great sense. You have to focus on yourself. And that's true. People don't know that a lot of times you have to love yourself, focus on yourself, and worry about yourself. And, Roman, there's so many questions I could ask you. I just think that the fact that you sort of have taken control of your life. You're living on your own now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're taking your medication.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing well with it. Now, how often do you have to see a doctor? What are the doctors actually saying about you right now?
Well, I mean, the doctors think I'm doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still struggling. I still have my depressions and things I go through, anxieties, depressions, things I work on. The doctors see me as doing well. My doctor wants me to be more active, maybe have a job, but
That will help.
that will help. And I'm looking. I had a job where I was a funeral driver recently,
Oh.
and I really enjoyed it. But I quit impulsively, so now I'm looking to get something similar back. But yeah.
You know, sometimes we have to do jobs that we don't want to do. I always thought the world of drag was entertaining was my big thing. But once I realized that from the direction of just a couple of people pushing me, they said, you know, maybe you should try to do this as well. Because I think that, you know, if you can't do all the entertaining at night, I think this could be a good niche for you doing the talking. And I never thought I could do this. And now I'm doing this.
You tried it and you really liked it, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you just have to think outside of the box and just try to do things outside of the box. And then you'll know that you can do these things. You know, I am so glad, Roman, that I got to talk to you, and not too in depth, because we really don't want to put that kind of thing on people. We want people just out there to know that there is help and resources. And what was your first step that you took to tell our audience, what do you recommend people that are going through schizophrenia? What is the first step they should first, I mean, you first have to know what the diagnosis is, I would think.
I would say obviously get the diagnosis, get some help. You know, if it's appropriate for you, get on medication, but be proactive with your doctor. Don't just let them over medicate you, because that can make you feel like your emotions are behind a glass screen and you can't access them. But get an appropriate dose of medication, and don't believe the over fear about symptoms and that you shouldn't be feeling anxious, you shouldn't be feeling depressed, you shouldn't be feeling. I would say that's all part of life for anybody, and know that there's value in your struggle, and learn how to navigate it with courage and balance, and go through it as best you can, and even learn about yourself. It's an opportunity to learn about yourself, because it will benefit you in the long term. Because personally, if I just listened to the doctors and didn't have my own point of view and my own desire to actually go inside, which is not recommended by psychiatrists because they don't understand, maybe don't understand that going inside through meditation or awareness practices is actually a good thing for people with mental illness. But yeah, if you learn to navigate the process of recovery, and don't necessarily fully believe everything doctors say. Obviously, there's a lot of good stuff there, but you got to take charge of your own recovery as well.
And you know, you got to reach out. That's the only way. You know, it took me a long time to sort of be humble and to sort of reach out to other people and ask them for help. And I learned that, you know, it's a lot easier than you think. If you reach out, there's lots of people out there that will help you. And I always tell people, first and foremost, talk to your folks. If you can't talk to your folks, talk to somebody at the church. But 9 times out of 10, most of us have a doctor of some kind, and that's the person that we put most of our confidence into, or to our parents. So it's good that you reached out, in a sense, to get the help that you needed. Because, you know, we have great places like Sound Times, CAMH, and many other places that are, and St. Mike's Hospital has been a great resource for people to get the help that they need. And we're lucky we're in Canada that we don't have to really worry about bills from a doctor. and we can see somebody on the regular that's going to make sure that our welfare is pretty okay. As long as we engage them, we can get some sort of help to put us on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you plan on doing now? What do you see yourself in the future? What do you see happening with Roman now in the future? What is it that you want? Do you want a family and children? And what is it that you want?
At the core, we all just want to feel good.
Okay.
So I want to feel good, and I want to continue growing. I want to continue advancing and see where it leads. And I have serious plans, but I am in school for social work, and I want to do some kind of work with people potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly, I just want to keep learning about myself, keep growing, do stuff that helps me.
You know, I like that. You said you want to keep going and you want to keep learning, and that is a great thing to have. The fact that you've come to terms with your illness, you've seen a doctor, you're taking your medication, and you actually see a future for yourself, and that is just as good as being on the road to recovery. The fact that you're confident and now and taking charge of your life, taking charge of what's going on with you, and moving forward. And you know, Roman, thank you. Thank you. And hopefully we have helped some of you out there a sense of what Roman is going through. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia in
2012.
2012. And he's been taking a series of pills. He's been homeless. He's probably, you know, I heard somewhere along the line, I don't know if I can ask this, I knew that at one point you were trying to take your own life.
This was at the end of the homelessness, when the psychosis got so bad and just got into a really bad spiral and a trip.
Mm-hmm.
It was really traumatic and difficult, and yeah, it was.
But we're glad to see that you're alive and you're well, and that, you know, sometimes, like you said, you have to take charge of what's going on with you and what's going on with your life, and you've done that. And I'm glad that you're my friend.
Thanks,
I really
Stephanie.
am.
I'm glad.
And I love talking to you because you make sense, and I think that this show can help others. And the mere fact that I'm glad that you're open to talking, and that is something very important that you need. You need good friends, you need family, you need resources, you need people that can help you. Reach out. So Roman here, if you're in Toronto, you guys know we have a great place called Sound Times or CAMH, or what else would you recommend, Roman?
The only other place I've been to is Progress Place.
Oh, Progress Place. Mm-hmm. These places can help you if you're struggling with any things that you think are mental disorders, or you're bipolar, or you feel like you're just struggling with something. And it's better to first reach out to your doctor and your family so they can get you to a doctor, so somebody can help you find the resources you need so you can recover and get better, or just understand what you're going through. So for my good friends out there, thank you guys so much for joining us here on the Stephanie Stevens Show. Thank you, Roman Herlin. I've learned a lot about schizophrenia in the 30 minutes that we're being on. And I am so glad that you have educated us, and now as I now know a little bit more about my friend, so I'll be a little bit more understanding to being more compassionate and thinking.
And a bit more grateful I don't have to deal with that.
Oh. Until next time, my friends, thank you for joining me here on the Stephanie Stevens Show. Until we meet again, tomorrow I will be in the West End of Toronto with Miss Katanya Evans and her partner Kelvin, two people that are from two different cultures, Barbados and Iraqi. They're in love and they're going to get married, and we're going to have a nice conversation about them, the mere fact that he was heterosexual and she is transgendered. And we're going to get that story tomorrow on the Stephanie Stevens Show. So be sure to tune in. Thank you guys so much for sharing the love. Share the videos, comment. And until next time, my friends, Thank you for joining us here on the Stephanie Stevens Show. Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Stephanie.